Welcome to Proof Beyond Reason, episode 3.
What's up?
Yup.
That's it. We got Religion Man with you right now. We got Mike the Baptist. And as always, Geology. G-Facts in here. Let's give a quick shout out to our sponsor this week. We are being sponsored this week by There's a Need. Check them out. They got a Facebook, There's a Need. They are helping out the people on the streets, going in there,
Doing that mission work on the street, local. Love
so you
it.
guys can take that, like them, and definitely be encouraged by some of the stuff that they're doing in there. And just so you all know, I just wanted to give a quick shout out. Lee Strobel was at my congregation service this Sunday.
That's foul, bro.
And I completely forgot to invite my brothers.
That's terrible. You know, I had a lunch meeting on Sunday with my pastor, but if I text him and I say, look, man, I'm going to have to postpone, Lee Strobel's in the building, he would have been like, I'm coming too.
I'm coming with you. Yeah, I was in the service, and all of a sudden it hit me, and I was like, yo, I forgot to invite G, and I forgot to invite Mike.
You see who we're working with?
Yep.
This is who we're working with.
Yo, it was amazing.
No, that's it. Forget this, dude.
Nah, for real though. I got a book signed for you guys though.
You for real? Or is that lie?
No.
See, this is again a lie.
So just to go on that, we're gonna be talking this week. We've been talking about the culture in some of our past episodes, and this week we're gonna be talking about false or quote unquote fake news.
Fake news.
So make sure you tune in. Stay tuned. It's a little over 50 minutes this episode, and it's going to be 50 minutes of fire. Fake news. Okay, I don't know if you guys heard or saw about Facebook being widely criticized for the U.S. election.
Yep, I've seen that a couple of times. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
Facebook. So what happened was they had no rules. There was nothing regulating the information that came out that was getting poured into Facebook. So Facebook actually got criticized for fake news stories going viral. And people believe that it had the potential to influence the voters and what happened with the voters. And the CEO, they went to Mark, and I guess they talked to him, and he was getting scoffed. Or he scoffed at the whole accusation that was happening, but then immediately Facebook went to work, and they created guidelines and kind of did all of this stuff in that led up to what we have now. I'm sure everybody that has a Facebook account has seen something about Facebook cracking down on fake news, but they partnered up with a couple different organizations, and for the French election, they were able to target over 30,000 fake news stories. I mean, these stories we're talking about in Macedonia, 150 people or organizations, groups, just created a website, called it whatever they want, and then created articles and just started pushing it out. And the reason why they did that had nothing to do with fake news, but it was because they realized that the quickest way that they can get the most followers was to put out some fake news articles so that they can in turn get ad dollars. So that was their whole 150 organizations. Let's put out a bunch of trash that people are going to eat up, because in the culture right now, fake news is running rampant. And so let's call it something. Let's put a label on it. And, man, we have 100,000 subscribers, 100,000 people viewing. Well, this company will give us X amount for every click and X amount for every viewer that we have. Bank.
That's genius.
They made money. I'm going to Macedonia. It's over.
That's genius.
So that's
But
fake
this is
news.
But this is not new, because like if you follow sports on ESPN and all that, I don't know if you ever seen those websites. And this has been for years, that they'll have a dummy ESPN website. So you think it's ESPN.com, but it's actually completely different website, but they just have ESPN in it. So it'll be like es.pn, and then at the end it'll have some other type of
they got
thing.
a lot of codes.
Right,
like
right.
.co.
Exactly, yeah. So when you go into it, it's taking you to a non-ESPN website, and the logos have been ripped. You can tell that the graphics are just terrible, and it'll have like one of those banners or something that says Conor McGregor and Mayweather scheduled to fight on September whatever, and then the weigh-ins and
Crazy.
But it's all lies.
All of it. But
You got the clicks.
It looks super official. You get all the clicks. You get some sort of news, and the name Wikipedia. So here's a couple of what you're actually saying, because I pulled up a couple. So here's some stuff for anybody that's listening. You guys can write these down. Please don't visit these places, or visit it and laugh with us. So here's some names: abcnews.com.co. So just the .co at the end.
Yeah.
But using this credible or uncredible, depending on what we want to view as that, abcnews.com. And then they just throw the .co. We got Before It's News, BizStandard news.com. We got Bloomberg.ma. Yo, I'm just going to take let's take something.
For?
I don't know, but let's do like a Forbes.ma.
Forbes.ivan.
.co.
.co.
That'll sell. Ivan,
because it sounds rich.
but
it
I'm
sounds
not.
business-like.
I'm not Ivan the average anymore.
You're religion man. We get
I
that.
am religion man now.
No, I mean, we had a few people hit me up, and they were just bringing suggestions to the table, and I have a few here that I'm gonna read real quick.
So I haven't heard these yet. So I don't know what they are.
So this
he was
dude-
gonna bring it up.
This should be
now.
interesting.
Yeah, so this dude, let's see. So we have here Ivan the Credible.
Ooh.
Incredible.
Ivan Credible.
Incredible.
Credible.
Mm-hmm.
Does he have
Yeah.
the logo of the Incredibles too?
He could do that. We could make that happen. Street words, thriving Ivan, Mr. Parentheses. I like that.
I like Mr.
You see, because
Parentheses.
this man goes on a tangent. You could be talking about something super serious, and then he'll just turn around and say, did you see that bug on the wall? And then just talk about the bug for 45 minutes. So I like that. Side note, excerpt.
Wait, side
Ooh,
note.
Excerpt.
I like side note because I preface a lot.
Excerpt. I like excerpt.
Excerpt.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you can't follow me at excerpt.
Yeah. Anyway.
Follow me at Mr. Parenthesis.
It's all fake. It's all fake.
fake.
Anyway, so I mean, even the website Wikipedia, it's funded by the people, but anybody can change the information that's within. So I've changed just for kicks. I remember going on to like a Miguel Cotto. I searched Miguel Cotto, and it had his record, and I changed his record, and within Wikipedia. And I just put, I put some message on there, and I saved it, and I hit up my friend. I was like, hey, go on Wikipedia, search Cotto, tell me if you find this. And he saw it, and he was like, oh, that's hilarious. Anybody could change the information in Wikipedia.
Random fact about Wikipedia, though, every 6 hours they have someone monitor and change any information that is false.
Really?
Yes.
See, I didn't know that.
Yeah, but someone or how many people? Like, is that an organizational
I've heard
thing
it's
that
a
they
group of people.
Yeah, they must have a department.
That's dope, though.
So
I didn't know that. So thank you, G, for confirming.
That's
Is that fake?
geology.
No.
That's
Yeah,
G-facts.
that is geology.
That's what I'm gonna call
G-facts.
that. G-facts.
Ha.
Sound effects. So knowing that we have this huge flood of information coming in at all times, and we have so many different ways for anybody now to be their own publisher, their own author, journalist, anything, whatever you want. They're their own broadcaster, literally, and they have all these different social media outlets to be able to do that. What does this do to the culture?
It's confusing to the culture. We talked about the last couple episodes how we're bombarded by information, but not all the information that's being released is legitimate. But even in verifiable news sources like ABC News, Fox News, whatever you want to throw on there, you still have the problem of of bias. You still have the problem where the media is funded by corporations, and so there's gonna be there's gonna be an initiative in one direction or another, because
some agenda.
If Pepsi's paying me $500,000, but the caveat for me to receive that money is to speak on X, I can choose to either be to have a high ethical standards for my organization and say, no, we're not going to accept your money, or, well, we really need the money to pay rent, so I'm going to accept the money and I will compromise as little as possible, but it's just enough of an agenda to set things in a different direction.
So would you say, Mike and G, because I just got a thought, would you say that LeBron James, that's getting paid by Kia to drive the Kia around for the NBA Finals and the NBA playoffs and is everywhere, that dude's not driving a Kia,
bro?
But
he is not driving a Kia.
He's
and
getting
then
paid to drive a Kia.
that's what I'm saying. So that's what, like, is that fake? Because he's obviously not driving a Kia, but he's sporting saying, hey, I'm here. I'm driving a Kia. You should get a Kia. But he's not really driving a Kia.
Okay, so if you ever seen that Dave Chappelle stand-up, I think it was, I forgot what it was. Anyway, so Dave Chappelle stand-up, he says, Pepsi and Coke. I've done ads for both Pepsi and Coke. And to be honest, I can't tell the difference. But Pepsi paid me more recently, so I like them better. Essentially, he doesn't care where the money's coming from. He's going to endorse whoever's paying him. Yeah. And it was a joke, but it's the reality of the situation. If you have, why are any media outlets or any companies utilizing sports stars or contributing massive amounts of money towards media? And, if you start digging deep and, the whole, I guess, genealogy of, where the media connections are and all these big, corporations, a lot of the big corporations own the media outlets. So any agenda that they want to push, and this is not conspiracy theory, this is Wall Street, all right? So if they want to push a specific agenda, they can. If they want, if they're getting funding from a particular group, let's say it's a Christian group, and this Christian group happens to be totally false doctrine. Let's talk about, I don't know, the prosperity gospel. So let's say prosperity gospel group. There's a network of prosperity gospel, and they decide they want to push their agenda. They have big bucks, so they go to the corporation. They pay them the big bucks, and they say, "Hey, this is what we want to do." And the corporations accept the money. Then they're going to push whatever agenda in order to push the agenda that they were paid to do, and it's no different than anything else.
But that's a tentacle then of false news.
That is a piece of false news.
A piece of it. Yeah.
So
but it's a legal piece, one that no one's going to take off of the air because, like you're saying, it's bought out.
Right. So if we are very concerned about all these false media, and and to your point, Facebook put out all these warnings and top 10 lists and all this stuff to help protect, at this point, to protect the UK elections, but the mainstream media is the things that we have to be concerned about. Mainstream music, even, where you have rappers and you have rock stars who are in the mainstream, and not saying all of them. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to generalize all of them, but the reality is, if there's a corporation or there is some type of funding in one direction, then I need you to give a shout out to, like we do, a shout out to Matthew Movement, because they're providing us with certain tools that we need. So we say shout out to Matthew Movement, but whether Matthew Movement has an agenda and they tell us, hey, push this agenda, and we push the agenda, we compromise ourselves ethically. So it's on us to make the determination, do we compromise or do we stay true to the gospel and have no kind of sponsorship and no kind of backing? It really falls on the individual, and it falls on the organizations.
Which we have to do more deeper. You got to look into that organization, see what that organization is really about. And a lot of times these people are taking it, like you said, Mike, because of the money. The money's there. They need the money. And we need you to say these certain things and do these certain things. and then you'll get that money in return.
And I mean, we see a lot of that with going back to the beginning of fake news. We call it yellow journalism by Frank Luther Mott. But we see Joseph Pulitzer and William, what's his last name? Well, anyway, keeping going on. We see that constantly where, say, for example, during the whole hemp crisis, 1890s, 1920s, 1930s, we see the wood industry like combating against hemp. And then what did we see a spike of? Reefer Madness, 1936, where the movie came out saying marijuana is bad for this and that, but it was basically so corporations can get funded and knock out the hemp industry.
Yeah. I
Nice.
mean, a lot of these things are true. If you look at now in the last year, I think it was September of last year, we had the news report came out. I believe it was ABC News. I think it was ABC News that did the report. I could be wrong. But they did the report that stated scientists back in the 60s, when they released the nutrition facts and they started saying, well, the issue with obesity has to do with saturated fats or fats in foods. The reality of what the research told was that it was sugar. Sugar was the culprit for the obesity, the spike in heart disease, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, not fat.
Yeah.
So
High fructose corn syrup.
Right. So suddenly the corporations that needed to push their agenda, they funded the scientists and to put out fake news or to put out fake results of their research. Hence,
That's crazy.
Yeah. So hence, this is what came out, and now there's it's huge scrutiny but it's already been all these years later.
And these are credible sources that are saying it. I'm a doctor. I did a study, and now I'm going to put this
Correct.
out. How do you combat? Like, how do
Actually-
you say that's false?
Actually, it was the New York Times that put it out. And the reason why the New York Times put it out was because independent people like you and I decided they were going to do heavy research. It got exposed. There were movies made about it on Netflix. Right now, you can check Netflix. There's a bunch of movies out there. And then now the mainstream media started to catch on because they got exposed. So now mainstream media is doing further exposing. But what's happening now? The trend is moving away from high fructose. It has been.
Mm-hmm.
So it's already been moving away from high fructose. It's already been moving away from the sugar diets now onto other things like quote unquote organic or whatever other labels. How do we know those are real? How do we know any of that is real? We put a lot of hope and trust in the corporation.
And you pay a pretty penny for
You
something
pay
that has a
good
label
bucks.
on it that says organic,
Right.
or may say doesn't have preservatives, or all of these things.
You trust
but how
it.
do you know?
Tru-
You
yeah,
have
do
to
your
take
best
it
to
on
trust.
faith,
Right.
or you dive deeper.
Right. Exactly.
Not knowing that an LED, actually, if you stare at it, is like a stage 2, can give you stage 2 blindness, like after you stare at it for a while.
And I mean, it's constant repetition. That's what's happening. We sit down in front of the TV and we experience what they call quote unquote news. And whatever mainstream media pushes, that exactly what is led to what we are led to believe.
You remember that movie, Godfather Part 1, where do you remember that?
What?
So Michael Corleone, right? He before he went to kill the cop. Before he goes to kill the cop, he's sitting at the table with his brothers, and he says, "Hey Tom, we have newspaper people on the payroll, right? They would love a story like this." And so the movie was an example of what was a practice back in the day, back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, but even to present day, where you have small organizations or powerful people that have newspaper people on the payroll that are willing to put out the story, and they can throw it up there.
And most people have said that for years and years and years, but they are looked at as conspiracy.
Correct.
Like, you're a conspiracy theorist saying that, Hillary was able to pay all these people, or Trump was able to pay all these organizations to say these different things and to push an agenda. But it's all true.
I mean, I have a quote by Malcolm X.
Well, the ability for them to
the ability
to be able to do that is true. They can do that. If I have $1, I can put funding in a direction that I
Correct.
want to, and that that is true.
Correct.
And it has been done for years and years since that
Correct.
scene in
But
The Godfather and before.
Right, but the accusation that it has happened might not be true, and labeling something conspiracy doesn't necessarily mean that's false.
Yeah.
Because what's happening now is, I think like 5 years ago, when you said conspiracy, people were eating it up. They were finding conspiracies in everything. Now, you say conspiracy is the equivalent of saying religion. They just throw it out completely because they're saying, yeah, that's false. But it's not necessarily false if you do some digging.
Now, there has to be a split as well, talking about conspiracies. You have conspiracies, which is actually two people gathering up to make an agenda, and then conspiracy theory, which is basically the belief in something yet to be proven, but yet sometimes, depending on either one, there is fact to it. So let's take, for example, MK Ultra program the CIA used to alter the mind state of people in 1950s, 1960s, and that was all based on Aleister Crowley. You could say it's conspiracy theory, but yet now it's proven to be fact. Same as Bohemian Grove, the elites gathering up, quote unquote, people heads of the corporations. But like Malcolm X was saying during the media is the most powerful entity on the earth. They have the power to make the innocent guilty and to make the guilty innocent. And that's power because they control the minds of the masses.
Yeah, information is one of the most powerful things that you can ever have. Information. Yep. If I have enough information on you, Mike, and me and you are in the exact same workplace, it doesn't even have to be true. I can literally go to HR, write something up about you, and it can be fake news, and HR takes it, but because it was information and I was able to publish it, put it out, and someone believed it, you're done. You now get sat into a room by HR, get a call, you got to talk to them for an hour or two, and now you're looked at by your peers, you're tarnished. That's it. They saw you walk into that room. You have to leave, you get a week off or whatever that may be while they're investigating. Sometimes there's no coming back from that, but that's how easy it is, and information is one of the most powerful things, like you were saying, G.
It's the modern day tabloids. You remember the tabloids that, I mean, they still have them. If you go, you pay at, the supermarket, and next to the register, they have those, it's like a picture of Kim Kardashian.
Elvis is still alive.
Right. Elvis still alive. Tupac just made 4 more albums. Kim Kardashian gained
National
400
Enquirer?
pounds. Yeah, all these, right? They're seen as not credible.
Shout out to National Enquirer.
No shout out. I retract that shout out. No, for real. But they, we walk by them and we say we know those are not credible. Yet when we see the Facebook feed, and there's some gullible people out here. I mean, super gullible that believe any story. Like, even think about it. Like, even when someone posts a picture and there's a quote. Like, let's say you have a picture of Albert Einstein, and then there's a quote next to Albert Einstein. It doesn't necessarily mean that Albert Einstein did the quote, but somebody just created it, and suddenly it's attributed to Albert Einstein as if he said that.
I mean, it's like one of my favorite quotes they have on the internet. Don't believe everything you read on the internet. It says by Abraham Lincoln.
So Lee Strobel, actually, for those of you that don't know who Lee Strobel is, he is he studied journalism, and then he also studied, was it law that he studied? It was journalism and law, I believe, that he studied. You guys can look that up, but he has a movie out right now, The Case for Christ, and he was the author for the Case for Christ, and he worked for a publishing company where he was the head of this publishing company, and he said that there was so much fake news that there was a sign on his door that said, if your mother tells you, if your mother tells you she loves you, check the facts. Check that woman. So that he said that was how hard he was on anybody bringing anything up that they believed to be true. So he lived by this quote that said, for each fact, you need 2 different sources to verify it. You need 2 different sources. History, now, if we're going back into like historicity, where if I'm taking something out of the fabric of time, you'd be lucky to get 2 sources to be able to say that this one piece of parchment or this one thing is true. So he lived by that rule, and that's how he was able to kind of distinguish or at least put like a wall up. But what scares me is we don't have one right now.
And just to give a few more facts about Lee Strobel, he was an atheist to the core, and through research and really living by that code, if that's kind of how he lived, this is how he came to Christ.
Yeah, his wife. So Lee Strobel, just as a side note, yeah, his wife was became a born-again believer, and he was a hardcore atheist. So in order to disprove his wife, he said, I'm gonna take up 2 years, and I'm gonna kind of show my wife through all of my efforts and what I've done and what I've learned, I'm going to show her that this is fake. And in the end, I won't ruin the ending, but go ahead, grab that book, Case for Christ. I mean, it really was amazing. He was able to show that there's just not two different sources for the historicity of if Christ was crucified, if Christ was actually in a tomb, if he was resurrected, and if people saw him walking after that. I mean, there were things outside of the Bible, 6 to 7 different sources, which is way more than we would have for some other pieces of history.
Yeah, especially when it's ancient history.
Ancient history,
You know, that's very
things
difficult.
and things that are not myth, because myth can happen, and that can be called fake news as well.
Yep.
You know, fake news is the modern day myths, but it takes time for myths to happen, and now we're able to create a myth like this in a second.
And I mean, we see that in Zeitgeist. Zeitgeist is exactly that common trend that people like to go to, but even though it's been debunked countless of times, like we could talk about how they speak about in the movie Horus being the equivalent of Jesus, or Jesus adopting the things of Horus, but yet the Bible never mentions when Jesus was born, and you can look at the belief of the Egyptian mythology. Horus was not born on the 25th. He was not born of a virgin. Isis was dating like Osiris and then had Horus.
Yeah, so there's a lot of essentially what Zeitgeist does is it's a movie that came out, but it's a movement. And so what they do is they try to they don't just it's not just to abolish religions, but essentially what they're trying to do is to point at the fact that government is the one controlling the mind of everyone. So they look at all facets. They look at currency. They look at laws. They look at religions, and specifically Christianity. And so what they try to do is say Christianity is just a merge of different myths put together to create this person Jesus who's fake, and here are all the facts. So they go through all these what they call facts, and they compare it to some of the myths, and they say, you know, Jesus said this, Jesus said that, Jesus is this, Jesus is that, Jesus' name means X, and all of it is actually untrue, completely untrue, even from the first point, or one of the first points, where the scriptures wasn't written in English. And their whole basis and their whole thing is based on the fact that the Bible would have been written in English, but the Bible wasn't written in English, so their whole base is just destroyed. And as you continue to go down to their what they call facts, they're all false. Like G said, they've been debunked countless times by legitimate sources, legitimate historians, but also other more low budget movies were created to debunk Zeitgeist, but they don't get any media attention. Why? Because they didn't put out the fake story. They put out the facts, and the facts very seldomly get the financial backing. Yeah. So, you know, Zeitgeist, again, it's one of those movements that they put out a lot of assertions. People are gullible. They follow it instead of pausing for a minute and being like, dang, is this real?
But this is a problem in our culture right now. This is a huge problem. Just like the other episodes that we talked about, some of the issues that are having and plaguing our culture right now, this is one of them. Fake news, the ability for us to have whatever we want and read whatever we want, unfiltered, We used to have someone monitoring these things. We would have one channel, 2 channels, 3 channels, and even on those channels, obviously there was somebody pushing an agenda on which shows would get cut and which shows would make it on air and how much clothing she actually has on her. Right now, I'm afraid to give my daughter, when she grows up, a cell phone, because the cell phone can do everything that my computer can do, my phone could, everything. And it can search up unfiltered. They have apps right now for 12-year-olds, and I'm just picking an age, but in that age range, that they can speak to older men, and it erases immediately like a Snapchat.
Shut up.
Like a Snapchat.
That pisses me off. Don't even go there, dude.
So literally, a dad can, or a mother, either any family member can walk in, and by the time they get to that phone, it's too late. It's too late. The app erases itself. I mean, they are made for that. And it's not really crazy for us to think that that can happen. I mean, you have something like Snapchat. That's just a first base to something like that. Now, all I want my programmer to do is to not only cancel all that, but I want a hidden feature where every single time I text, it disappears right away. And even the person that I see is disappeared by a blanket page that no one can go to the back of that blanket page unless they have a passcode or whatever that may be. This is the epidemic that we're living in when it comes to this. So what do we do? I mean, what are some of the ways that we can distinguish what's happening right now? What are some of the ways that we can take a look at fake news and not just take a look at it, but actually combat it?
I mean, some people, like Google, for example, they have done something called Project Owl. Now, Project Owl...
That sounds amazing, G.
It's still in the works, but it's just almost like Facebook policy, except once you type in your search, once it goes auto-suggestion, it gives you categories. You could put, is it explicit? Is it hateful? Is it violent? But then it's basing it off of people's opinion, and it's going to be biased. So that is something that's always conflicting. But going back, say, for example, to our situation, Christian background, we could see what we can do to it. We had the reformers, earthly, like Catholics and all that stuff. What did they do? We see Martin Luther talking about how they perverted doctrine. So they went against the church. They spoke out against it. And then we could do the same thing that's happening now, making sure mainstream media is being under control, making sure that what is put on or what we are receiving is actually true.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough when you have let's just, Facebook, and I know we're shouting out some of the social media outlets or some of the more popular search engines, and it's where there's really a lot of good that can come out of it, and it can be used for a lot of good, really good. I mean, we're using it as a platform to promote the show, so we don't want to bash it too much in that sense. But I mean, there is a need to bring awareness because the agendas can get pushed very easily. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, the problem is when you have, I think Facebook is like, if Facebook was a country, it would have the largest population in the world. I think if that's an accurate statement. So there are billions and billions and billions and billions of people who essentially live on Facebook Island. And if you want to reach the masses and put out whatever you want to put out, and if Facebook wanted to just create their agenda, they can. I mean, even Google has so many people that use it that whenever there's some kind of celebration or there's some kind of special day that they want to draw attention to, they have it in their search engine. I think today is Teachers Appreciation Day, right? So they have that on there, but anything else they wanted to, they can celebrate any kind of, destruction of morality. They can celebrate any kind of anything.
Which makes it scary, because once we start looking at 1 to 2 people as the standard for anything, then what if they start leading us astray as well?
Yep.
So we can't just look at Facebook, and we can't just look at Google or any of these people as they are combating. I think it's good to take a look at some of their guidelines and how they're actually viewing it. But in essence, they also will be biased on how they're doing it. I'm only going to use these guidelines. Mm-hmm. I'm only going to use these 6 credible sources to go through. And if these people say it doesn't make the cut, then it doesn't make the cut. But who are these people, and who are you to say that it isn't? So
yeah, I mean, even if when you say the word credible, that's even tough, because if you have somebody like, Richard Dawkins or something saying, throwing out assertions about Christian history, and he has no real backing, or he has no affirmed research for his accusations in his books, then you have a problem. You have someone who is credible in the world of this type of science research, but he's not credible in philosophy. So for him to make a certain statement and to be credible, but he's already a credible source because he's a New York Times bestseller, he's this, he's that, he has awards. So it becomes very difficult. Even that word credible, it's tough to trust anybody. Yep. Like it's really, really difficult to trust anybody, and it's like, really, how do you verify? And I think
that's where this guy named Dr. Sherman. So I'm going to get into the 4 processes why people actually will ignore facts and just believe fake news right away. Dr. Michael Shermer, he's the publisher of Skeptic Magazine, and he actually teaches Skepticism 101 at PFC University. So he wrote this for Business Insider. He wrote that there are 4 processes that our brains go through before in order to take fake news instead of believing.
Right.
And the first one is what you're saying, Mike. So cognitive simplicity is the first step. So in general, our brains is going to we process information, and belief will come quickly, and naturally skepticism is slow.
It takes time for skepticism
for skepticism to develop. Most people have a low tolerance for ambiguity. This is the word that always gets me.
Ambiguity.
That's it. It's always the T that I can't say to get that in there. But research shows that when we process and comprehend a statement in our brain, actually accepts it as true, whereas the opposite, skepticism of the statement, requires an extra step for your brain.
Mm-hmm.
So our brain has to pause for a moment in order for it to actually take and say, hold on, is that true? And so that's the first step that our brains take. So right away, we get simplicity. Our brain says, this is simple for me to process. It's going to be easy for me to see it as true, right? The next step that comes in is cognitive dissonance. And this is when the uncomfortable tension comes in from holding 2 different thoughts, 2 thoughts that are conflicting at the exact same time. It's easier to dispute facts than to alter one's deepest beliefs. So that hits on so many other levels. Don't touch my belief system. That's where you'll get the fight or flight, the person that's kind of like, listen, man, this is what I believe no matter what. The whole like, I cut the ham on both ends and put it in a pot, in a pan, and then your husband keeps telling you, why are you doing that? And she's like, well, my mom did it, and that's just how I'm going to do it. Then you go to the mother, and the mother says, well, my mom did it, and it just so happens that the great-grandmother's alive, and he walks up to her, and she's like, I don't know why they're holding on to it so hard. I only did it because my pan was too small. That's that.
I love that.
That's that same thought process, but we hold dear to it. And Dr. Michael Shermer is saying that is called cognitive dissonance. That when you're holding on to 2 conflicting thoughts at the same time, it's easier for you to dispute the facts than alter one's deepest beliefs.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that, especially if you've been living that lifestyle for X amount of time, knowing that it's not good, knowing eating these types of foods aren't good, knowing that, you know what I'm saying? Like, then it's difficult to let go. So you rather challenge the facts and say, but I've been doing this for a long time, so it is what it is.
So after that, the third step that our brain goes through is called backfire effect. So the backfire effect. The backfire effect is cognitive simplicity and dissonance goes into a phenomenon which people seem to double down on their beliefs with their teeth, like we were saying, and even though overwhelming evidence is showing that it's not true. So what they do is this backfire effect. There was a bunch of experiments done by Dartmouth College. What a name, Dartmouth College, right? Where subjects were given fake newspaper articles that confirmed widespread misconceptions, such as the existence of WMDs in Iraq. When these subjects were given a corrective article that WMDs were never found, liberals who opposed the war accepted the new article and rejected the old, whereas the conservatives who supported the war did the exact opposite. And more, they reported being even more convinced that they were WMDs after the correction, arguing that this is only proof that Saddam Hussein hid or destroyed them. In the real world, when WMDs were not found, liberals who supported the war declared that they had never supported the war, and conservatives who supported the war insisted that there were. So we just go to this.
So there was evidence that there weren't. Conservatives said
that there weren't. They published these fake things, threw it at them, and they literally teeth. That's the backfire effect. Don't touch me. This is what my mom did, and this is just what I'm going to keep doing. Even though the pan is bigger, I'm holding on to this. This is the backfire effect. And then the last effect is called tribal unity, where we are a social prominent species, and we want to we don't want to be singled out by anybody else. That's true. It's some of us are more introverted, and some of us are more extrovert. But a little bit past that, it's that peer pressure. No one wants to be the only kid in the class that's not liked. And that's where tribal unity comes in. This means that being consistent in agreeing with a group or members of a group, whether that group is our political party, religious faith, or whether it's true, it goes against our core beliefs, is what we'll do anyways. We just end up within this cognitive process of tribal unity.
Yeah, when you go into that whole deal, I mean, everything you're saying, it's almost, what's happening today, where you have alliances being made and people having to make decisions on where do you stand, in spite of real evidence that points to the contrary, or real evidence that point to true morality, or real evidence that point to where society should be, or whatever you want to call it. There's this pressure for you to accept. There's pressure for you to compromise. There's pressure for you to purchase. There's pressure for you not to purchase. To protest, to do all these things, and where's that coming from? Where are the facts? Where is the truth behind
standard?
what? Right. So are there real facts? Is there real evidence? It's crazy when you think about like the fake news thing. How many stories have been exposed, let's say as real news, let's say legit news, it's out there, and it just gets swept under the rug and nobody hears about it anymore.
Yeah. We release things. Our government allows, 15 years, G? After 15 years, then we're
After 15 years, 15 to 20 years.
15 to 20 years, we're able to get news and the truth behind what certain things happened 15 to 20 years ago. And that gets swept under the rug like crazy. It mind boggles me how much that particular thing, it kills me, because something will get released, but what happened with all the news for years and years and years up to that date that said the exact opposite? But the articles just got released by the government saying this is really what happened, and this is what we did. And now what?
And I mean, we see that commonly now. So say, for example, mainstream media, CNN 2008 with the riot coverage in Tibet, showing an Indian video not even located in that section. BBC 2011 coverage of war on Libya, where it had alternative flags. They had the Indian flag instead of actually from Libya. So people are starting to get confused. So say, for example, a recent event that happened with the shooter that killed the old man in Cleveland, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep. Cleveland, Ohio.
You see that, it pops up automatically on Facebook. And you'll see my friends, since they consider me, quote unquote, in the conspiracy realm, they'll say automatically, Gio, is that true? And
That's what I do. I hit up G. I'm like, G, is this real? He'll get back to me in like 20 minutes and he'll break it down for me. So shout out to Geology.
If you guys got any questions, you guys can hit us up at proofbeyondreason@gmail.com and just put a G facts on that in parentheses and state your question. Is this true? And G Facts will get back to you.
He'll do his best. We can't guarantee he'll get back to you. He's a busy guy.
One man.
But he will get back to you. One man, one pillow, one
pillowcase.
computer, one microphone. He's doing his best.
But yes, like I was saying, we commonly see that now. So people are starting to discredit the mainstream media. We see, say, for example, our new president, Donald Trump, how he did the backlash supposedly of CNN, Fox News, and all that stuff. So now people are questioning. Mm-hmm. So they're going to independent resources. Now we see Russia Today spiking in their views, and you'll see them constantly on YouTube answering questions and all these things going on. But yet, we'll commonly see things being pushed out still by Fox. So say, for example, I was sitting down yesterday, and automatically this headline was, "Girl defends herself against alligator," and I was just like, what's happening? But
I'll click on it.
It's exactly, people are going to click on there because now it's becoming like a show. People are going just for the views.
Yeah, that's the headliner.
Yes,
not what's going on with ships going close to Japan and close to China, North Korea. That's not the headliner right now. You got to look in different avenues for that. I mean, just as an example, two of the top most clicked on fake news articles. Here are their headlines, right? And this I got from CNN Tech, so you can go further and see if those are true as well. But based on CNN Tech, they're saying that the two top false news articles that they had to take off were CNN and BBC were caught staging the chemical attacks in Syria. Mm-hmm. So that was fake news. Based on what they're saying, that they definitely didn't stage that, but that was a top clicked article. The next top clicked article, I would have clicked on this one. The plant that everyone has but nobody knows makes cancer cells disintegrate within 24 hours.
I'll click on it.
I'm clicking
on that right now.
Right away.
I'm clicking on that.
Those are the two top stories that they had to take out last week. I mean, we're talking about made up. That's completely made up.
Well, let's put it this way. I know we're getting, we had kind of a serious talk about all that stuff, but just to be clear, some of these sources, they know it's fake and they're doing it because they think it's funny.
Yeah.
Yep. They think it's hilarious that so many people are gullible. They want to put out the fake news. So, I think that's important to realize as well, that not all of the fake news is meant to be serious. Like, I think, what is his name? Jalil White or Steve Urkel, whatever. Somebody had put an article that said he had killed himself, and on the suicide note, it said, "Did I do that?" And people who took it seriously, like, as soon as I heard that, I was like, "It's fake." But some people were like, "Yo, he killed himself." I'm like, "What are you talking about? Like, really? He's gonna write that?" And
April Fools.
And he's on Instagram. Yeah, he's like, "Yo, what is what is this?"
They said Dana White quit the UFC on April Fools. He got well, no, he didn't quit. He got fired.
Yeah, that's not happening.
And that didn't happen for sure.
No, but I'm clicking on that for sure. I want to know if he got fired.
I clicked a couple times.
I will click. I'll keep going deeper because I want to find out about it.
And definitely. I mean, going back to everything, the root of the problem, how fake news actually affects us, I go back to basically the beginning, where everything started. We go from Genesis 3:5. For God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil.
Yeah, so on closing, we're ultimately responsible for what we believe. Even though there's this epidemic of fake news, and even though there is a flood of things that are coming at us, we are still ultimately accountable for what we're believing, our belief system, for the amount of time that we spend to look at our worldview and to look at our world around us and see if what we're claiming as truth, if it's really truth. We can't put that on anybody. I can say it's wrong for somebody to push $100 million in my face with fake news, but it's ultimately on me to believe it, the clicker.
Right.
there is a weight as far as like in a utilitarian type of looking at it that yeah, somebody that's getting the masses in order to be okay with the few, but in the end we should all know, and all the listeners, that it's really on us.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I think, we're a culture, and really we're a world that is moving in the direction of seeking entertainment. Even though we know maybe some of this stuff is fake, we want to live in fantasy world because life is tough. Life is difficult. People are going through real things. People are really getting locked up. People are really addicted to drugs. People are really struggling financially. People are really being abused. Children are really getting abused. There's stories about rapes. There's all sorts of epidemics out there. There's
fire rings showing up.
There are real things going on in the world, and sometimes there's the need for an escape with some entertainment, some funny things, a little bit of humor, a little bit of distraction. But when our lives are consumed with distraction, when our lives are consumed with entertainment and falling for these traps, then we lose sight of what's real. We lose sight of what's true. We don't spend time seeking out the truth, which is the most important thing we got. We can't just throw things out to say, oh yeah, I'm gonna put religion in this bucket and just throw it out, or I'm gonna put these philosophies in a bucket and just pretend it's nothing. No, the reality is we have to seek for truth, because what do we have? We don't take none of this stuff. We don't take these mics. We don't take these computers. We don't take these clothes that we take nothing with us when we perish. And so what is the truth? And that's what we need to seek and find, is the reality of the truth. And I would admonish everyone that the gospel is the truth, that the scriptures have been verified historically. It has been verified through geographical studies. It has been verified, through currencies. It's been verified through extra sources outside of Scripture, the sources within Scripture. There's so many historical events, real people that it points to that. We don't have enough time today, and we'll definitely cover one of those, that as a topic at some point in the coming episodes. But for sure, the gospel is the truth, and we have to seek and make sure that we understand what we believe and why we believe, and not get consumed.
Make sure you guys check us out at proofbeyondreason@gmail.com. We are recently on iTunes, on SoundCloud, on YouTube, on Facebook.
Yes.
I mean, we've been getting to work as a team. And so make sure you guys check us out on all those. Every week we're going to be coming at you guys with an episode. Make sure you guys are seeing this. If you guys want to subscribe to any one of those, whether you have an Apple or a Samsung or any of those other whack ones.
We don't even know what the other ones
what
are.
the other ones
I don't even
are.
know what's
Those
going
are just
on.
the two.
Yeah,
but just make sure you guys subscribe to us and you guys can hear it. Please comment. There's a bunch of ways you can comment, and it links directly to one of us, so you'll definitely hear back from us so we can give you a shout out next week. It's Proof Beyond Reason.
Yep. We out.